The winter wind whipped around Maya's face as she hurried down the unfamiliar street, cursing herself for taking this shortcut. Her phone's GPS had promised it would save her 10 minutes on her walk home from another unsuccessful job interview, but now she wasn't so sure. The buildings in this part of town seemed to lean inward, their weathered brick facades creating shadows that stretched longer than they should have in the late afternoon light. That's when she saw a storefront she could have sworn wasn't there when she first glanced down the street. A hand-painted sign hung crookedly above the door, Raven's Curiosities Antiquities. The display window was clouded with age, but something about the items arranged behind the dusty glass caught her eye. Was that an easel? Maya pressed her face closer to the window, her artist's soul immediately drawn to the antique wooden structure. Before she could stop herself, she was pushing open the heavy wooden door, its hinges protesting with a long, low creak. The smell hit her first, a complex mixture of old books, sandalwood incense, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Something that reminded her of her grandmother's attic and summer thunderstorms. "We've been expecting you," came a voice from the shadows, causing Maya to jump. A woman emerged from between two towering shelves, her silver hair cascading over shoulders, draped in layers of flowing fabric in deep jewel tones. Her eyes, sharp and knowing, seemed to shift color as she moved closer. "I'm MS. Raven? Welcome to my shop." Maya's hand instinctively clutched her laptop bag tighter, where her digital portfolio sat, filled with paintings no gallery seemed interested in. I was just looking," she stammered, suddenly feeling like an intruder. MS. Raven's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Nobody just looks in my shop, dear. They find what they need, whether they know they need it or not." She gestured around the space, and Maya's eyes followed her movement, taking in the overwhelming collection of objects that filled every surface. Crystal balls caught what little light filtered through the windows, sending rainbow reflections dancing across walls lined with masks from cultures Maya couldn't identify. Pocket watches hung suspended from delicate chains, their faces displaying impossible configurations of numbers and symbols. In one corner, a collection of mirrors reflected versions of the shop that seemed subtly wrong, like paintings done from memory rather than life. "You're an artist, MS," Raven stated. "It wasn't a question. And you're struggling. Not just with money, though your bank account is certainly causing you sleepless nights. You're struggling with something deeper. A sense that your destiny is slipping away from you, perhaps." Maya's throat tightened. She thought of the rejection email she'd received that morning from the art gallery, the past due rent notice taped to her apartment door, and the way her dreams of becoming a successful artist seemed to be fading like old photographs left in the sun. "How did you know, MS?" Raven smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let's just say I recognize the look of someone whose path has been interfered with. Tell me, dear, have you accepted any gifts lately? Seemingly innocent items shared by well-meaning friends or acquaintances?" The question sent an unexpected chill down Maya's spine, though she couldn't understand why. She was about to answer when she noticed something odd about the way the shadows moved in the corner of the shop, as if they were reaching toward her with curious fingers. MS. Raven moved through her shop with the fluid grace of a dancer, her fingers trailing over objects as she passed. She stopped at a glass display case and pressed her palm against its surface. Inside, arranged on faded velvet, lay 6 seemingly ordinary items. "People think of curses as dramatic things," she began, her voice taking on a hypnotic quality. "They imagine sudden transformations, violent accidents, or obvious supernatural events. But the most dangerous curses, they're subtle. They work slowly, like poison in honey, sweet and invisible, until it's too late." She pointed to a friendship bracelet woven threads of muted colors. "Take this, for instance. Sarah Chen was a promising young painter, much like yourself. A friend gave her this bracelet at an art fair 3 years ago. Something to remember me, by the friend said. Within months, Sarah's brushstrokes became hesitant. Her colors grew dull. She found herself staring at blank canvases for hours, unable to translate the visions in her mind into reality. The bracelet had begun feeding on her creativity, drawing it out thread by thread by thread, like a spider spinning its web in reverse. Last I heard, she'd taken a job as an accountant, convinced she'd never had any real talent to begin with. Maya's hand unconsciously moved to touch the threaded bracelet on her own wrist, a gift from her best friend. MS. Raven's eyes narrowed. The digital watch seems harmless enough, doesn't it? She gestured to a sleek black timepiece. James Martinez received it as a graduation present. He had dreams of becoming a writer. He had even been accepted to a prestigious workshop. But the watch began stealing more than just time. It stole opportunities. Important emails would arrive just minutes after he'd stepped away from his computer. Literary agents would call during the 5 minutes he was in the shower. Publishing. Deadlines would shift mysteriously earlier without him noticing until it was too late. The watch ensured he was always slightly out of sync with his destiny, until his dreams of writing became just that, dreams. The mirror compact gleamed innocently under the shop's dim lights. This belonged to Rebecca Wong, once a confident public speaker. The mirror shows you what others fear you might become, feeding those insecurities until they become reality. Rebecca stopped doing presentations, then speaking in meetings, then leaving her house. She couldn't bear to see her reflection anywhere, convinced she was becoming the diminished version of herself the mirror had shown her. Maya watched as Ms. Raven lifted a ceramic coffee mug decorated with cheerful sunflowers. Michael Thompson was an entrepreneur with boundless energy and drive. This mug was a gift from a colleague. Every morning it would drain a little more of his motivation along with his coffee. He began sleeping later, missing meetings, letting emails pile up. His innovative ideas dried up like old coffee grounds. Now he works in a cubicle, too tired to even remember his dreams of starting his own company. The leather journal's pages rustled softly, though there was no breeze in the shop. Lisa Anderson's wife gave her this journal as an anniversary present. Lisa was a historian, dedicated to preserving stories of marginalized voices. But the journal didn't just record memories, it rewrote them. Each time she wrote in it, her own history became a little hazier. Her passionate connection to the past faded. Now she can barely remember what drew her to history in the first place. Finally, Ms. Raven picked up a delicate silver ring. And this might be the most insidious of all. Emma Roberts received it from her mentor. The ring doesn't just affect relationships, it corrupts them. It plants seeds of doubt, turns trust into suspicion, love into obligation. Emma was a therapist, known for her deep empathy and connection with clients. The ring slowly eroded her ability to trust, to form genuine bonds. She left her practice, convinced that all relationships were ultimately transactional. Ms. Raven's voice grew urgent. But these are just 6 items, you see. The seventh is always in circulation, being passed from person to person, completing the cycle. These objects work in concert, like instruments in a dark orchestra, each playing its part in stealing someone's destiny. Maya felt her throat go dry. But why? Who would create such things? Ms. Raven's smile was sad. Some say they weren't created at all, that they formed naturally from humanity's tendency to share their misfortunes, to unconsciously want others to share in their lost dreams. Others believe they were crafted by someone who had their own destiny stolen and sought revenge. But the truth? She gestured around the shop, where shadows seemed to dance at the edges of Maya's vision. The truth is far more complex. She fixed Maya with a penetrating stare. The real question, my dear, is how many of these cursed items have already found their way into your life? And more importantly, are you ready to discover what the 7th item might be? The air in the shop grew thick with anticipation, and Maya could swear she heard the faint sound of ticking, though she couldn't see a single clock on the walls. Maya's hands trembled as she unlocked her apartment door that evening. The conversation with Ms. Raven had left her shaken, but it was the text messages on her phone that truly frightened her. But there were dozens of them, all from her best friend Sarah, all sharing photos of items she'd recently acquired and wanted to give away. Found this cute mug at a thrift store. Perfect for your morning coffee. Hey, got an extra fitness watch, want it? This vintage compact mirror would match your style. Maya scrolled through her photo gallery, heart pounding. There was Sarah, wearing that same silver ring she'd tried to give Maya last month. In another photo, a leather-bound journal peeked out from Sarah's messenger bag, identical to the one she'd insisted Maya should have for sketching. Even the friendship bracelet currently on Maya's wrist had come from Sarah 3 months ago, right around the time Maya's art had begun to feel different. Sleep evaded her that night. Instead, Maya dove into research, her laptop's blue light casting ghostly shadows across her walls as she explored centuries of folklore about cursed objects. Ancient Egyptian artifacts that brought misfortune to archaeologists, cursed diamonds that left trails of ruined lives across continents, haunted paintings that drove their owners to madness. But nothing quite matched what she was seeing. These items were different, subtle, modern, almost tailored to their victims. Her eyes burned as she created a spreadsheet, tracking the timing of Sarah's gifts against the decline in her own artistic career. The correlation was undeniable. But dawn was breaking when Maya finally discovered an obscure blog post about Destiny thieves' objects that acted as conduits, transferring one person's lost opportunities to another. The author described how these items typically traveled in sets of 7, each targeting a different aspect of a person's potential. Maya's blood ran cold as she read the final paragraph. The carriers often don't know they're spreading the curse. They feel compelled to share the items, believing they're helping others while unconsciously protecting themselves from the object's full effects. She confronted Sarah that afternoon at their usual cafe, choosing a quiet corner booth away from other customers. "Where did you really get these things?" Sarah. Maya placed the friendship bracelet on the table between them. "And why have you been so insistent about sharing them?" Sarah's face flickered with something recognition. Fear. But it was gone so quickly Maya almost doubted she'd seen it. "What are you talking about? They're just nice things I thought you'd like." "That's what friends do, right? Share." "And your art," Maya pressed. "You used to paint too. We were going to open a studio together, remember? But you stopped right around the time you started finding these nice things." Sarah's hands wrapped protectively around her coffee cup, the same sunflower mug from MS. "Raven's shop. I just grew out of it, found other interests. People change, Maya." No, Maya leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "People don't just change. Their destinies get stolen. Tell me, Sarah, do you even remember what it felt like to want to be an artist? To have that fire inside you?" A tear slid down Sarah's cheek. "I thought I was helping," she whispered. "When I got the first item, the ring, everything started feeling easier. Like I didn't have to want things so desperately anymore. And then I started finding the other objects, and they seemed to want to be shared. I thought if I gave them away, spread them out, maybe their effect would be diluted." Maya reached across the table, taking her friend's trembling hands. "But it doesn't work that way, does it? The items don't get weaker, they create a network, feeding off each other, growing stronger with each new person they touch." Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes, along with horror. "The 7th item," she breathed. "I've been looking for it. Something in me keeps searching, even though I never knew what I was searching for." "That's what I need to know," Maya said, her grip tightening. "What's the 7th item, Sarah? What completes the set?" Sarah shook her head, her eyes now distant and unfocused. I can't," she stood abruptly, gathering her things. "I have to go. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry." As Sarah hurried away, Maya noticed something fall from her friend's Baga small business card. Picking it up, she felt her heart stop. It was MS, Raven's card, but the text was different now. Where the shop's address should have been, there was only a single line. "The 7th item is the one you give away first." Back in her apartment, Maya dumped her purse onto her bed, hands shaking as she sorted through her possessions. The friendship bracelet from Sarah, that was one. The leather journal she'd been using for sketches, and there, gleaming accusingly in the lamplight, the silver ring she'd accepted last month but never worn 3. Half the set already in her possession. Her phone buzzed. Another gallery rejection. This one stung more than usual. It was for an exhibition she'd been specifically invited to submit to. The curator's words blurred before her eyes. "While your previous work showed promise, your recent submissions lack the vital spark we're looking for." Maya grabbed her sketchbook, desperate to prove them wrong. But as her pencil touched the paper, the lines came out wrong, hesitant, lifeless. She couldn't capture the images in her mind anymore. They slipped away like water through her fingers. The more she tried, the worse it became, until she hurled the sketchbook across the room in frustration. It hit the wall near her calendar, drawing her attention to all the crossed-out dates, coffee meetings cancelled at the last minute, gallery visits that somehow never happened, networking events she'd mysteriously slept through. Her time was vanishing, opportunities dissolving like sugar in rain. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her mother. Haven't heard from you in weeks. Are you avoiding us? Maya frowned. She'd called just. When was it? The memories felt foggy, indistinct. She scrolled through her call history. Nothing for over a month. Another text, this one from her oldest friend Jamie. Since you've blown off the last 3 dinner plans, I'm getting the message. Hope whatever's going on is worth losing friends over. Maya's hands began to shake. She hadn't blown off any plans, had she? But there they were in her messages, her own texts, making excuses, cancelling at the last minute, promising to reschedule but never following through. She didn't remember sending any of them. The cursed objects weren't just affecting her art, they were unraveling her entire life, thread by thread, choice by choice. She had to get back to MS, Raven's shop. But the street looked different in the dying light. The buildings seemed to shift and blur, their facades rearranging themselves like pieces of a sliding puzzle. Where was the shop? It had been right here, hadn't it? Maya spun in circles, panic rising in her throat. Looking for me, MS. Raven's voice came from behind her. The shopkeeper stood in a doorway Maya could have sworn wasn't there a moment ago, her silver hair now streaked with what looked like moving shadows. You knew, Maya accused, storming toward her. You knew I had 3 of the items, and you let me leave. Of course I knew, MS. Raven's eyes shifted color like oil on water. Just as I know you've begun giving them away yourself. Maya froze. What? No, I haven't. The bracelet you lent to your cousin last week. The journal you suggested your colleague might find useful. You're already part of the cycle, Maya. The items have begun working through you. But the weight of truth crashed over Maya. She had done those things, hadn't she, and felt good about them, charitable, even. Just like Sarah had. What's happening to me? Her voice cracked. The items are accelerating, MS, Raven replied, her tone grave. They can sense they're close to completing the set. Your destiny isn't just slipping away anymore, it's being actively consumed. Then help me stop it, Maya demanded. You know so much about these objects, you must know how to break their power. MS Raven's laugh was hollow. Break their power? My dear, I'm the one who created them. The shadows around them deepened, seeming to pulse with a life of their own. MS Raven's form appeared to flicker, like a candle flame in wind. Why, Maya whispered. Why would you create something so horrible? Because sometimes destiny needs to be redistributed, MS, Raven said softly. Some people have too much potential, too many possible futures. It throws the universe out of balance. The items don't destroy destiny, they transfer it. Every opportunity you lose, someone else gains. Every dream that dies in you blooms in another. Maya backed away, her heart pounding. You're insane. No, I'm practical. And you, my dear, are about to make a choice, MS. Raven held out her hand, where a small object glinted in the darkness. This is the 7th item. Take it, complete the set, and I'll show you how to control them instead of being controlled, or refuse and watch as they consume not just your destiny, but the destinies of everyone you try to help by sharing them. The object in her palm was a simple key on a silver chain. It looked perfectly ordinary, just like all the others had. Maya stared at it, understanding finally dawning. That's how it works, isn't it? The 7th item is always offered as a choice. A way out that's actually a way deeper in. MS. Raven's smile widened, showing too many teeth. Very good. You're cleverer than most. So what will it be, Maya? Will you take the key, or will you try to find another way? The shadows reached for Maya like hungry fingers as she made her decision. Maya backed away from MS. Raven's outstretched hand, the key glinting like a snake's eye in the darkness. In that moment of clarity, she remembered something from her research, a single line in that obscure blog post: cursed objects can only exist if their victim accepts them willingly. No, Maya said firmly. I won't take it. The shadows around MS. Raven writhed. Then you doom yourself and others to the item's influence. Or Maya pulled out her phone. I proved that destiny isn't yours to redistribute. She pressed play on a recording of their entire conversation, including MS. Raven's confession of creating the items. Sarah's voice came through the speaker. I'm here, Maya. I heard everything. Sarah stepped out from behind a corner, clutching her sunflower mug. Behind her emerged other figures, James with his watch, Rebecca holding her compact mirror, Michael, Lisa and Emma, each carrying their cursed items. "We found each other," Sarah explained, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "Once Maya started investigating, we connected the dots. Every victim left a trail, and it all led back here." MS. Raven's form flickered violently. "It doesn't matter. The items are bound to you all. You accepted them." "But we never accepted their true purpose," Maya countered. "You hid that from us. And acceptance under false pretenses is no acceptance at all," Lisa finished, her historian's knowledge shining through. "That's basic magical law." Maya stepped forward, her artist's vision seeing patterns in the shadows around them. "These items work in a set of 7, because 7 is a number of completion. But it's also a number of breaking 7 years of bad luck, 7 seals to break a curse." The victims formed a circle, each holding their cursed item. Maya stood in the center, the 3 items she'd received laid at her feet. The air crackled with potential. "A curse can be broken if those bound by it reject it together," Rebecca said, her voice trembling but determined. "I found that in my research before the mirror took my confidence. And cursed objects can be unmade if their original purpose is understood and denied," James added, his writer's mind still sharp, despite the watch's influence. MS. Raven's laugh turned harsh. "You think understanding is enough? These items are bound by sacrifice. What they take from you feeds what they give to others. What sacrifice can you offer to match that power?" "Our fear," Emma said quietly, her therapist's insight cutting through the darkness. "We sacrifice our fear of losing what these items made us think we needed to give up." Michael stepped forward, his entrepreneur's spirit flickering back to life. "I sacrifice my acceptance of mediocrity." One by one, they declared their sacrifices. "I sacrifice my doubt in my ability to connect with others," from Emma. "I sacrifice my foggy memories," from Lisa. "I sacrifice my distorted self-image," from Rebecca. "I sacrifice my lost time," from James. "I sacrifice my borrowed contentment," from Sarah. Maya took a deep breath. "And I sacrifice the belief that destiny can be stolen rather than chosen." They raised the items together as the clock struck midnight. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. "We reject these bonds," they spoke in unison, their voices growing stronger with each word. "We reclaim our destinies. We choose our own paths." The items began to vibrate, humming with a frequency that made Maya's teeth ache. MS. Raven's form became increasingly unstable, the shadows around her churning like a stormy sea. "You can't," she hissed, but her voice sounded distant, as if coming from very far away. "The balance will find its own way," Maya interrupted. "That's what real destiny is, about choice, not distribution. Balance through freedom, not control." The items lifted into the air, glowing with an inner light that grew brighter and brighter and brighter. Maya felt something snap inside her, like a rubber band breaking, like chains falling away. Around her, the others gasped as they felt the same release. The objects shattered simultaneously, but instead of shards falling to the ground, they dissolved into particles of light that swirled around each person before sinking into their skin. Where MS. Raven had stood, only shadows remained, and even those were fading. It was never about the items, Sarah realized, color returning to her cheeks. They were just anchors for our own doubts and fears. Maya felt warmth flowing back into her hands, the familiar tingle of creative energy she'd thought she'd lost forever. James checked his watch, which now showed the correct time. Rebecca's compact reflected her true face, not her fears. Michael's mug was just a mug, Lisa's journal blank but full of possibility, and Emma's ring a simple circle of silver. The shop itself began to fade around them, revealing the ordinary street it had always been. But they remained, standing together, their destinies their own once more. "What now?" Michael asked, looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Maya smiled, feeling the weight of the cursed item's influence lifting completely. "Now we create our own luck." And maybe she looked at Sarah, then at the others who had become unexpected allies. "We help each other do it the right way this time." The night air felt cleaner somehow, filled with possibility. Above them, 7 stars shone particularly bright, as if reflecting the broken curse and the new paths now opening before them. 6 months later, Maya stood in a crowded gallery, surrounded by her new paintings. The walls were alive with color and energy works that captured not just images but emotions, possibilities, choices. In each piece, 7 small stars could be found hidden in the composition, a private reminder of the night everything changed. Sarah stood beside her, beaming with pride. Her own easel at home was no longer gathering dust. She'd rediscovered her passion for watercolors, creating works that complemented Maya's style perfectly. They'd finally opened that shared studio they'd dreamed about, though not quite in the way they'd originally planned. "You know what's strange," Sarah said, sipping champagne from a perfectly ordinary glass. "I found some old photos from the shop, but Raven doesn't appear in any of them. It's like she was never really there." Maya nodded, touching the spot where the friendship bracelet used to be. "Because she wasn't not really. I think she was a manifestation of something else. Our own fears about destiny, maybe. Our worry that success is a limited resource that has to be stolen or hoarded." Around them, their fellow curse breakers had found their own paths forward. James had published his first novel, a supernatural thriller inspired by their experience. Rebecca had started a support group for people struggling with self-image. Michael's startup was gaining traction, with Lisa as his company's historical consultant. Emma had expanded her therapy practice, specializing in helping people recognize and break free from self-imposed limitations. The real curse, Maya realized, wasn't in the items at all. It was in believing that we had to diminish others to elevate ourselves. That destiny is a zero-sum game. Sarah squeezed her hand, and the real magic was in choosing to break that chain of thinking, in realizing we could all succeed without it coming at someone else's expense. As if in response to her words, the gallery lights caught the small key hanging as an art installation in the corner, the 7th item they'd never accepted, now transformed into a symbol of the choice they'd made that night. It sparkled with ordinary metal shine, its power to harm gone with the revelation of its true nature. A young artist approached them, clutching a portfolio with nervous hands. Maya recognized that the hunger for success, the fear of failure, the desperate search for any advantage or shortcut. "Beautiful work," the artist said. "How did you? What's your secret?" Maya and Sarah exchanged knowing smiles. "No secrets," Maya said warmly. "Just hard work, authentic choices," and she gestured to Sarah and thought of their circle of friends, the courage to lift each other up instead of pulling each other down. Outside the gallery, 7 stars twinkled in the early evening sky, witnessing the simple but powerful magic of people choosing to create their own destinies together.